Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode on the Lessons from the Game podcast with my co-host Ben Pegna. And today is our short form episode. We'll be talking about dealing with the pressure of that first big game, getting your first cap for your national team, national under 18, under 20 team, your first team of your school, your club. We all know it can be tough, and that it can be a very interesting and stressful week building up to that first big game. And we're going to be talking about that, giving you guys insight, sharing our experience and the lessons we have learned from our careers. But before we get stuck into this juicy topic, Ben, my brother, how are you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been, G. You okay? I'm good, man.
Nah, I'm all good, man. All good. Actually, here in the house that I grew up, here in the Cape, so which is awesome. So it's actually the first time I'll ever be doing a podcast in the house I grew up in, which is awesome. So great to be back in South Africa and spend some time with family and loved ones, and lots happening. Experienced a lot. We'll chat about that a bit. But Ben, man, tell me, I just saw a post on Instagram, boxes of sumaco. What's going on? Is there something you're not telling me? Are you guys going to sponsor our podcast?
No, that would be lovely, wouldn't it? Yeah. No, it's going well actually. Sumac, obviously it's summer now in the UK, so you're hoping the sales go through the roof, and they're increasing. So it's good, and it's a popular drink as we've spoken about before, and it's a good for you drink. So we're trying to get it out there to as many people as possible, and my house has become the next warehouse.
Sumaco, tell us more about the drink briefly, because we'll be talking about it at some stage in a later podcast. But if you can just briefly give us the cliff notes. What is it all about? How can it benefit you?
Yeah, thanks, G. Yeah, Sumac, I've been involved in the company for about a year and a half now. It's a really amazing drink. It tastes amazing, first of all, which is always important, but it's a good for you drink. So it's in that health and wellness space. There's only 11 calories in the can, but there's no added sugar, no added sweetener, and it's made with sumac. So it's the first drink of its type in the world that's made with sumac. And sumac is a spice they cook with in the Middle East, but it's actually an antioxidant. Not many people know that. So there's the equivalent of a tub of blueberries in one can of sumac. So we're selling it. It's going really well. We're in about 40 to 50 different places in the UK, in coffee shops, in spas, in Pilates studios. So it's going really, really well. So hoping to have a big next fortnight is really big for us because we're selling it outside Wimbledon tennis. So it's going to be a big one. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, man. Okay, lots going on. I'm currently in South Africa, Ben, as you know, so thanks for your patience with me. We've been struggling to get hold of each other. But yeah, it's just been great to get back here. And last week I coached my school, so as you can see, I'm wearing my old boys jersey, Paul Boys High, which is quite cool. Spent some time with the youngsters. Getting back to coaching was great, with the first team as well. It was just unbelievable. All right, Ben, before we get started, anything from your side? Anything you want to get stuck into before we dive into this topic?
No, it's been busy. I've had some amazing performance conversations with people in the last couple of weeks. I caught up with John Mitchell briefly. He's coaching the England women's Red Roses team, preparing them for the World Cup. I've actually managed to catch up with him a couple of times, which has been amazing. I spoke up to some people in football recently and just talking about high performance and those types of things. And it's just been really quite invigorating having different conversations with people, as well as just coming to the end of our season here with the rugby and the stuff that we're doing here. So it's been good. It's been good to share ideas and just hear other people's insight. And we'll talk about that more in due course, I know, but in other episodes. But yeah, it's been good, mate.
Awesome. Okay, let's get stuck into this one. All right, we'll deep dive into my experiences here in South Africa in a little bit. We chose this topic because I think it's just suiting, taking into consideration. I'm now currently in South Africa, and we're in the month of June going into July, and it's the start of the Craven week soon. I think it's the first week or the second week in July, and that's massive, for a lot of young rugby players in South Africa. That's like the stepping stone. That's where you get identified and sets you up for the rest of your career, getting into that academy, getting into a great system, getting an offer potentially overseas. There's a lot of pressure in that week, but also we got the Springboks that are playing again. So I can tell you this, the depression levels have decreased in South Africa because the Boks are playing this weekend again. And by the way, I was fortunate enough to catch up with some of the players and coach. Unbelievable guys. They are so humble. I can completely understand why they're doing so well. But we've all been there. that big game, whether it's playing for your first team of your school, first team of your club, you were 20-year-old, you get an opportunity to play for a professional side, you get your first top 14 cap or your first championship or premiership. It's all different. It might be different levels or different leagues, but what you experience as a player is similar. It's your biggest game. It's your biggest experience that is waiting for you. But the pressure, sometimes players tend to be completely overwhelmed by it. And they they're actually drowning. They're like this stress ball before a game. So, yeah, Ben, I'm gonna hand it over to you. What's your thoughts on that? Is there any advice that you can share with the audience in terms of how to deal with that pressure of that first big game? And maybe you have some of the experiences that you can share of your career.
Yeah, thanks, G. It's a good topic. It's a big topic, and I think it applies to all of us, regardless, as you said, regardless of whether you get to play the level you played, or if it's your a big game for your local club that you've aspired to play for since you were a young boy, and you've actually made it, and you're representing your village, your community, and it means a lot to you. And I think there's a few elements to this. One of them is that I think a lot of it comes down to preparation, doesn't it? If you can do as much preparation in the week beforehand and in the weeks leading up to it, so that you're taking into account the 48 hours beforehand, you might not sleep that well. You might be nervous. So you want to be sleeping really well and getting a lot of sleep in earlier on in the week. You want to be thinking about, how can I de-stress the situation so I'm not having to think about too many other things towards the end of the week and getting ready for the game? What preparation can I do so that I can just tick the processes and have nothing stressful on the match day, and all these other things that we can do to prepare beforehand. I don't know, what do you mean? You've got some amazing experiences along the way. What about you? What's your go-to here?
I think the most important thing is, I think, especially if we are speaking to our younger audience, the younger players, your 18-year-olds, your 20-year-olds, getting that big game vibe for the first time. I was fortunate. I went to a great school. I went to Paul Boys High. So you got exposed to that at the very young age. Even if you played for your under 16 team, if Paul Boys High played against Gym Interschools, it's massive. The pressure is on. You play against Grey College, Paul Rousseau. I was very fortunate at a young age to get exposed to that. But I think one game that definitely stands out for me, Ben, and I must get my dates right. I think it was in 1998. Wow, that's ages ago. Played for the first team. I started in our big derby game, which we call Interschools here in Paul. It's between Paul Boys High and Paul Gym. I played against John de Villiers in that game as well. Can you believe it? And it was massive, the build up to the game. So obviously, giving insights to Interschools, it's everything. The whole town comes to a standstill. They're bringing extra police because the kids are playing pranks on each other and stealing each other's mascots. And you got we got sing songs. The band is going. Everybody's learning the songs they need to sing in the stage. It's massive. And I can tell you that pressure, I felt it. And, so even though I was stressing massively, but I knew that I had it. I trusted in my abilities. I knew that I had the skill. I knew that I had the talent. I knew that the coaches would not trust me to play that game if they didn't believe in me. So I think my first step, and I made some notes here, so that those of you who are listening or watching, we're not just mouthing about here. You need to back yourself, Ben. You need to trust that we talk about this talent gets you in a room, but what are you doing to stay there? So you got that opportunity. So it means somehow coaches trust you, they believe in you. And let's be honest, sometimes you might get an injury, there might be an injury and you get the opportunity. You might not have been the first choice, but that's okay. It doesn't matter how you get that opportunity, but you're in the system, you're in the squad. So that means there is something there. So you need to trust yourself. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to share the points quickly with you, Ben, and then we can deep dive into it. And you just touched based on the other one. The key is in the preparation. Preparation allows you to build confidence. And by repeating certain habits, certain routines, it allows things to come naturally. And especially in your prep, in your game, your role, what you need to do. So preparation is key. Knowing your line-out moves, knowing your roles on all the different set piece plays and structure, phase play, all that stuff is important. But then You need to set clear goals and objectives, and that's where it's important to make sure that you know what is expected of you, Ben. Does my coach expect me to have hit 20 rucks? Does my coach expect me to have 10 tackles? If I'm a prop, what is the priority? Set piece, scrum, mauling, boom, that's it. All right, anything extra you can add, that's the most important. And I think then fourthly, which I've written down, is visualization and scenario training, is setting out all those different scenarios and actually kind of playing it in your mind. What if? What this happens? What do I do? Having like a type of a what if block. What if this happens in the game? How do I react? But I think most importantly as well, and if I can just add another one here, is just adaptability. Adaptability. Things are going to happen. It's going to be your first big game. You're going to make mistakes. And once you get the pictures from that game, once you get that game footage, it's an opportunity for you to learn and review. But I know that's a mouthful. So let's maybe break that down. Is there anything which I mentioned with you, Ben, which you really connected with?
Yeah, I mean, I've all of the points that you mentioned. So we're going to cover them one by one, but I've broken them down as well. And one of them you mentioned was about the preparation and the routine. And for me, one of the mistakes, I think back, and quite often when you're giving advice to people or where they ask you for guidance, you think back on the things that you did wrong yourself. I know I do all the time. I'm like, if I could have my time again, perhaps I wouldn't do it like this. And when I write, stick to your routine. And it's very easy when you come into a new environment and you're making your debut, and everybody else is a bit more experienced, or you feel they're more experienced, to try and get caught up in doing what they do and what other people do, or what other people advise you to do, as opposed to sticking to your routine. And quite often when I reflect on my big games, they happened in the summer because they're at the beginning of the season, just after the preseason, which is so you're going in, it's still hot weather. And one of them was like, you need to drink X amount and you need to eat bananas before you play. And you need to, and I remember having 3 bananas and loads of water and not being able to run, and things like this. So I think it's really important. I'm making a bit of a joke of it, but know what works for you and try and stick to your routine. And that's a really good one. And I know you touched on preparation, and we're going to talk about some of those others. The adaptability and the visualization are brilliant, because the other thing that comes to mind immediately for me is there's going to be mistakes. Every single player, every single person in the world makes mistakes. So when, it's the old Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and so there's going to be mistakes. So what happens when there's a mistake? What do I do? What's my go-to? And yeah, you touched on some brilliant ones there. Understanding your role, I think, is a really good one.
So Ben, let's maybe just deep dive into you. We've both mentioned quite a few things. If we start at the top, I think the first thing, backing yourself, believing yourself, I think that's very important. Having belief, that's the most important thing. You need to understand that you're there for a reason, whether you're on the system. So you got to trust your abilities. It might not be perfected. If you're a young rugby player, your superpower right at that moment might be energy. And, we've seen young players like Henry Pollock, his energy's off the roof. Yes, we can criticize him for a lot of other things, but, he's unique. He's being his authentic self. But I think the most important thing is believing in yourself. If you're going to start to swim in that pool of self-doubt, then it's going to be hard. And then you're just creating all these mental blocks, all these mental barriers before the game even starts. So I think that's the first thing. You need to get it out of the way. Am I good enough? Yes, 100%. I am. All right. Am I going to make mistakes? Definitely. But then it brings us to our next one, the preparation. How do I prepare? I think that's the important. We touch, and I think if we can maybe give a few pointers, the keys in the preparation, because a lot of the stuff we share, Ben, for us, it's natural, it's normal, because we think in a certain way, we have the experience. But I think to break it down to the player, when we say the keys in the preparation, that means knowing your roles. Knowing your roles in the set piece, in the phase play, in the game plan, knowing what you should be doing in the lineouts. Well, what is expected from me? Where should I be? And I think the most important thing is, preparing yourself at training. Be switched on at training. Set yourself clear goals and targets for training. Like, this is what I want to achieve. In the prep, and I always like to use this as a young player example, Ben, because these are the players or the inexperienced we're trying to help, or players that don't get a lot of game time. You don't want to put all that massive pressure on your shoulders, say like, I need to perform. If I don't perform now, it's done. All you want to do is just show something. That's the main thing. I think take that pressure off and say, I just want to show something. Show good pictures, something positive, whether it's good rucks, whether it's good ball carries or tackling. That's very important. So you need to break it down. You need to make sure and decide, what do I need to work on in this week so that I can have a decent game, so that I can be confident in my preparation and not asking myself questions 30 minutes before kickoff. Did I prepare well enough? Ask yourself, what do I need to do? And if you don't know, speak to your coaches, speak to teammates, speak to experienced players, get their feedback. But the key is that, and your preparation is everything. And you just mentioned there, and I think to simplify it is definitely sleep and recovery. That's important. Your nutrition during the course of the week. We all know if you want to have optimal performance, it starts with all the building blocks in the week. It's not just a decision you make on game day or 30 minutes before kickoff where you say you're going to switch. So you need to make sure that's in key. How many weight sessions should I do? Should I be doing a top-up? Should I be doing tackle technique? Should I be doing contact skills with my coach? I need to train with intensity. That's a mouthful. Anything you'd like to add in terms of the preparation before we move on to setting goals and objectives?
Yeah, just quickly, G. I think it is brilliant. It's so valid. There's a lot to this. You like I said just now, I think it's important you stick to a routine. But as it's new, you might be playing on a new pitch. You might be traveling on a new bus. You might be staying at a hotel the night before. You might be going to meet at a hotel. So you need to understand the timings. If you're new in a team, everybody's been in that position that you're in. You're going through. They've all been there before. So there's no stupid questions, There's like, what's the timings? Do we eat at the hotel before? Do I have to bring my own sandwich? Do I bring my own water? Do I have spare studs? I used to carry a pair of pliers in my bag, because the last thing you want to do is find now, all these things to change your studs before a match. Have you got a spare pair of boots? Do you warm up in your trainers? Who's going to do the strapping? When do we do the strapping? The more you can understand, that alleviates pressure. That takes pressure off you, because you're not suddenly an hour and a half before the game thinking, oh, I thought we were going to be fed. I thought we were going to be giving. I thought we were having access to that. I thought they were going to do I thought that when I played with the other team, the kit man always has spare studs. Now I have to bring my own. I didn't realize. Try and think through all those different scenarios and try and ask maybe some experienced players, the kit man, somebody you trust. What do I need to bring? What should I be expecting on match day? Those types of things. If you can walk yourself mentally through those scenarios, I think that takes the pressure away for you, and it can really help you.
Today's Lessons from the Game episode was possible thanks to the support of Harris Begley Financial Planning, headed up by former Blackheath player Matt Begley. They are the experts to speak to for tailored advice on investments, mortgages, insurance and pensions, helping you plan for a future of financial security. So when you think money, think Harris Begley and head to www.harrisbegley.co.uk. Approver Kilter Financial Services Limited and Kilter Mortgage Planning Limited, March 2025. You touch base, that's brilliant. Something which I'm a firm believer in, Ben, is scenario training, having those what if sessions. What if it rains? How will that impact me? You're talking about the studs, you're talking about the boots. What happens if I don't sleep well the night before? How do I deal with that? So you got to prepare for all those possible scenarios. And I think also, we also mentioned in terms of preparation, is also making sure that you analyze your opposition. There's a lot of things we're sharing with you now, which we've shared on other previous podcasts. But I think the key thing is, Ben, is that players know they are prepared. And that's a valid point, that on game day, you're not stressed out. They're actually planning it. What does it look like? When do I listen to my game day playlist? Am I doing some form of meditation or breathing on the day of a game? Do I have an ice bath? Do I have whatever? We're all different. I like to do 6 hours before the game. I had a routine, I had the activation. I did some trigger point foam rolling. And then I like some explosive stuff just to get my body going, my body started. But there's loads of stuff. And the scenarios are different, focusing on what you can control, what you can't control. And goals and objectives. This is something which I think is key. I think, and this is, I think a lot of players, I think it's important to have clarity on what you want to achieve in that first big game. You know, if I take myself back to my first professional game, I played for the Cheetahs. Yes, I used to play for the Cheetahs, guys. And I remember my first game, I was stressed out. And I had no idea, like in my mind, it was going to be this massive game. And I was stressed out the whole week. And I remember there was a winger called Ashwell Rafferty, Ben, maybe you remember him. And he just said to me, gee, get caught off guard. Don't get caught off guard with all the people in the crowd. All right? Just focus on yourself. Just focus on you. You got this. And I was like, wow, that is amazing advice. Unbelievable. So that really reassured me, Ben. And as I was running out, we had the Harley Davidsons at the Cheetahs. You know, back in the day, they run out the Harley Davidson. I ran out and I'm bumping my chest and I look around and there was no one in the stands. There was probably like a few hundred people. So once again, you know, I was stressed out for nothing. You know, there was a lot. But anyway, I think what I'm trying to tell was with the advice that he gave me. You got this.
Yeah.
Right? Back yourself. I think, you know, that's very important. But coming to goals and objectives, you need to set clear goals. And I think saying to yourself, I want to put in 2 big hits. I want 2 good hits. Or I say, you know what? I want 80 to 90% success rate in my tackles. I want to just, you know, you're going to make mistakes, but sitting like, what do you want to achieve? You know, what do you actually want to show? Because then you know what you're working towards, and also being realistic. You know, it's not going to be perfect. But I think that's so important. What are the goals that you want to achieve in the game? And what are those key objectives that you want to achieve? Any thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, 2 things. I think the first one is I always thought, what can I do immediately to settle my nerves? So what's the very first action I'm going to do? If we're receiving a kickoff, it's likely to be this. Someone else will take the kickoff. I'm going to be clearing, and then I'm going to be chasing a kick maybe. And I would visualize that. And then I would be thinking, I want to, as we kick out to clear, I'm going to either chase because it's gone into touch and I'm going to mark that line out, or I'm going to be trying to put pressure on the guy catching the kick, or I'm going beyond the catcher. And I would think through that, but I would want to get my first action in, so that would settle my nerves, and I would make it very process orientated, so that I could just always come back to the processes. And then the second thing, and hopefully that would be like something physical, like a tackle or a strong carry or something like that, that would immediately go, yeah, I can do this. I'm here. Everything's fine. It's just business as usual. And then the second thing is not overplaying your hand. You know, if you're making that first, you're like, I just got to do my job. You know, my role is to, as you said earlier, to clear X amount of rucks, or make 2 big involvements as a ball carrier in the first half, and then 2 big or whatever it is. But I'm not going to try and overplay my hand. I don't have to break world records today. I just have to come in, be a cog in this team, and be dependable, be consistent, and then I'll build from there. And those foundations will be solid then. And I think that's important. So you're not trying to break world records, you know, you just like ease into it and let it take care of itself.
Oh, it's brilliant, Ben. I don't think I'm going to add more there. I think you summed it up nicely there. Going into our next point, Ben, I think, which I spoke about, and maybe I think it ties into your preparation, but I think it's, we already touched base on scenario training, but I think visualization, you know, I used to use this as an opportunity for me to prepare for the game, visualizing actually different scenarios, closing my eyes and actually seeing myself executing certain assignments in the game, seeing myself make those big hits, you know, having those big scrums, those dominant scrums. And I think that's very important, because not only is it just positive reinforcement, but it's the mental skills is so important, Ben. We tend to underestimate that. And I think it's also about getting yourself calm. I think this is the key. By doing visualization and breath work, that will allow you to get into a calm state and have an ability to switch at the right moment. I think when I was still a player, when I used to see players doing breath work, I was like, that's weird, man. Why are you doing this? But now as a coach, I do it because it helps me to remain calm under pressure, allows me to, how can I say, be more productive and be focused and be aligned in terms of what I want to achieve. But don't underestimate the value of doing visualization, breath work, and even meditation if you're open to it. Because I think it's important. It's all about that energy conservation. All right. You need to conserve your energy, because if you are way too stressed out before the game, you are losing energy. If you're not in a calm state, that means you're not going to sleep the night before. And I think we might need to get someone in, a specialist, Ben. I think it's very important where players always focus on the night before. It actually starts way before that. You need to sleep bank. You need to bank that proper sleeping hours, especially 2 nights before. You need to get that in. So definitely visualization, that will definitely help you get ready and settle those nerves before the big game.
Yeah, very good. Agree 100%.
Ben, but tell me, is there maybe something you can share with us? Can you take us back to a moment in your career or any stage like where this was your first big game, where you were stressed out? If you can take me through that.
I think of it. I think the nature of the beast is that it's almost every game becomes, in a way, or every season, or every change, or every move. And I moved around a lot as a player. I went to New Zealand when I was 18. I just turned 18, and it was I was playing just club rugby initially, but I just arrived there, so you want to make a good impression, and you're going to New Zealand. You're going to South Africa or New Zealand. You're going to like pretty much the most dominant countries, and you're going as an outsider, and you want to make a good impression. You want to come across as this hard-working guy who's a team, and so I recall straight away I came off the bench in that first game, and I was so excited and overstimulated, I missed my first tackle. I remember I can visualize myself almost out of body missing this tackle. It was the most bizarre thing, because I reflect on it and I was so upset with myself. And I let that take over the next 10 minutes of the game, reflecting on this mistake that I'd made, and then I settled, and then I tried to put it right. And I recall that was when I was 18 though. So it was nice to get that mistake out of the way then, and then I made my first sort of professional debut. And, you talk about the dates. I remember it was the 12th of August, 1997.
Wow.
It was for Caerphilly in the old Welsh First Division. And before the regions came in, and I'm showing my age a bit. But I remember, like, again, I just see it. The talk during the week was, "Oh, Ben, you're playing, and their rate is this guy. He's played 150 first class games. He does this. Their number 7 you're playing against. He played 6 times for Wales. He does this." And I remember it clear as day. But I didn't get caught up in. I managed to have learned from that first time in New Zealand and not get caught up in overthinking it. And I was thinking, okay, I just need to do. It's a big occasion. My parents are coming to watch. It's really hot. It's going to be a really hot day. I'd prepared well, but we'd had an amazing pre-season. I knew I was in really good physical shape, the best shape I'd ever been in up until that point. And so I took confidence from that. I took, what it's like. And you take confidence from all these, the preparation, the hard work. I've put in the work, so I'm going to be okay. The processes will take care of themselves. So yeah, there's so many, but I think the key thing, whatever level you're playing, is you just go back to what works for you, but keep incrementally trying to just get better every time you do it and learn from that experience and bank that, and then go again.
Oh, wow, awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Ben. It's definitely gave away your age there, but to make you feel better, I'm 44, so 1981 baby. Ben, I think, you just spoke there about, way back. I think I want to go back to 2002. I was fortunate to be involved with a great group of players. The SA Under-21s back then was coached by Jake White. We had guys like Clyde Rathbone. Actually, I just came across this photo. I'll show it to you there. Then I hope you can see it on the screen.
I remember that year, man. That's a good
yeah,
yeah. I remember you guys.
Yeah, so we actually... Yeah, so it was actually at Gold Reef City, and it was myself and recently lost brother Pedro Vandenberg, one of my great friends, God rest his soul, and Clyde Rathbone, that ended up playing for Australia. So, it takes me back to that final, and we played against New Zealand. And no, it was actually Australia. The New Zealand was the semi-final. But playing that final, that was massive. Taking back the year before with the SA Under-21s, I was in the team, but only played a few games off the bench. So that was a big game. That was, at that stage, probably one of my biggest games ever. But I was confident. Why was I confident? Because I was fit. I was strong. I put in the work, and I trusted, I backed myself, I believed in myself. And I only achieved that confidence. How? The preparation. We had back in the day trial games. All right. Trial games. And that's another topic we'll talk about on another short form, preparing for your preseason, giving a good impression. But because I did the work, I put in the hard yards, I made the sacrifices or the personal investment. I was fit, I was doing well, I was running a great bleep test, I managed to get a bit stronger on the bench press. So all those moments comes down, at the end of the day, if we think about it, Ben, if we summarize everything, if you want to prepare for that first big game, the key is in the preparation. If you want to eliminate that self-doubt and that uncertainty, the more you prepare, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, the better you'll be off. But Ben, I think we've dealt quite a bit there. This was an awesome chat. I've missed these short form episode, and we just want to say thank you to our audience as well. They've been reaching out to us, Ben, and also maybe just a special shout out to the guys from the Behind the Ruck podcast with Juan and Rudy Page. It was an unbelievable experience, Ben, being there in that pod in person. That's something which we are striving towards, doing in-person pods. That will definitely be coming in the future, guys. So for those of you listening, we definitely need your help to get some unbelievable guests, help us to grow the show. But Ben, it was great being on the other side. And I just want to say thanks for them because, it just shows the type of people that are, the humility, and that they were willing to talk about our show as well. That was quite awesome, and really appreciate that. But I will tell you, it felt funny being in the hot seat for a change, Ben.
Oh man, you did well. I love those guys, and they're doing a great job, man. And it was so good to see you on it, and sharing some of the gems and some of the insight that you have from being a World Cup winning prop. And I think it's really, really good that you were getting the raps that you deserve, man, as well. And it's good to see you.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, it's good to see it, bro.
All right, brother. So before I end and wrap things up, anything else you would like to add? Anything in conversation? Maybe some information? Anything in general? All good?
No, I mean we've got a couple of really good guests coming up, in the next couple of weeks in our longer form, and I think people will get a lot from that. But also we're going to be talking more about some of the stuff we delved into today. It's a big, big topic. And we talked, as you said then, about how do I take this into the trials and things like that, and that pre-season mindset. So, there's some exciting stuff coming up. So, but again, thanks for everybody's support. It's really good.
No, I think, and on that note, Ben, I think it's very important that people understand what this podcast is all about. Ben and myself, we're not obsessed by getting the most amount of views on social media. It's about the actual content. It's about getting the right message across. It's about helping you guys, educating, sharing those key insights. And for that, we need your help to know, what are you struggling with? How can we help? That will definitely help us, Ben, as well, getting the right guests. And when we select our guests, we have a very I want to say in-depth criteria. What can the guests bring? What lessons can they share? We are not focused on being a podcast and just name dropping, having the big names. We have guests on that might not be that well known, but we ask you guys to trust us that when we have a guest on the spot, that means they're here to add value. Not only to you guys as our audience, but also to us as hosts, because that's the great thing about this journey, Ben. We are constantly learning. And guys, I want to say thank you to every one of you that supports our pod. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and leave a comment on social media, leave a comment on YouTube and Spotify. Let us know what you guys think of our podcast, if anything we can improve on, or anything else that you guys would like us to talk. But that said, that's us for today. Ben, it was good to chat with you again, and hope you have an awesome day.
Yeah, cheers.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.